of course you want to draft the right players in fantasy football this year, but maybe more importantly, you want to make sure you don't draft the wrong ones. I'm going to tell you about players that I refuse to draft in fantasy football in 2025. Starting off with a running back, this might cause a lot of controversy, but Jonathan Taylor. I know that everybody's going to be on the same page, but just let me make my case, all right? Let's review his season in 2024. 17.6 points per game. That sounds absolutely incredible, but let's peel behind the curtain and get a little more context behind his 2024 season. There's a chance that if you had Jonathan Taylor last year, you did not make the playoffs. In fact, I would say 9 out of 10 Jonathan Taylor owners last year who spent a first or early second round pick on him in their drafts did not make the playoffs. He missed 3 out of the first 10 weeks, and then he had a very mediocre fantasy impact from weeks 1 to 15. If you look at that span, but right before the playoffs or right on the playoffs, averaging 13.8 points per game. Decent efficiency, a good amount of carries per game, but just under 14 points per game. That's not what you were looking for from a first round pick. But if you made the playoffs somehow, then he probably helped you win a fantasy championship. That's because he scored 38% of his season total points in those 3 weeks alone. Now, you can see 39 in week 16, 27 in week 17, 25 in week 18. To be fair, he faced 3 of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. The Titans, the Giants, the Jaguars were all top 10 in points allowed to the running back position. So I can't fault him for producing, but obviously he was set up to do really, really big things. But I mean, in those 3 games, he was just dominant. If you compare most of his season, weeks 1 to 18 versus 16 to 18, his averages, I mean, look at the attempts per game. 19 seems very reasonable for me on the left-hand side, but from week 16 onwards, he had 32 rushing attempts per game, 173 rushing yards per game, and 31 fantasy points per game. We all know Jonathan Taylor is capable of these big blow-up games, but I just don't think it's likely to see anywhere near 32 attempts per game. I think that's more a reflection of the Colts just giving up on offense and saying, Jonathan Taylor, just do your thing. I think they want to be a more balanced offense, but more importantly, projecting into 2025, and this is what I really want you guys to take away if you take away anything from this video. In PPR formats, Jonathan Taylor is not going to give you much in a PPR format. Do not expect anything through the air from a Jonathan Taylor. This is not an offense that wants to target the running back position. I mean, they targeted the running back position last year, the third fewest amount of times in 2024. Only the Rams and the Chargers targeted the running back position fewer amount of times. All right, and JT himself finished 44th in targets per game amongst running backs last year. 44th at 2.2 targets per game. Guys, there are 32 teams in the NFL. Jonathan Taylor is a workhorse running back, but we have multiple teams in the NFL that had 2 running backs that had more targets per game than Jonathan Taylor. He had less targets per game than a Miles Sanders, Amir Abdullah, Michael Carter, Zach Charbonnet, who split a backfield, Alexander Madison, Justice Hill, Najee Harris, David Montgomery, who isn't even the pass-catching running back in his own backfield. I mean, also, you got to keep in mind, with Anthony Richardson and Tyler Warren on this team now, could we see more competition for goal line touches as well? I mean, overall, if it weren't for that 3-game stretch to end the year where he went absolute sicko mode, he went nuclear, where would he be drafted right now in fantasy football drafts? Because right now he's a round 2 pick based off ADP. I think he'd be much closer to the Ken Walkers, the Chuba Hubbards, the Joe Mixons, who are going in the 4th and 5th round rather than being a 2nd round pick. All right, that's my case. You can disagree with it. That's fine. All right, the first wide receiver that I prefer to avoid, I think he's a safe play, but I don't think he presents like league-winning upside. That is Devonta Smith. Let me start by saying this. Devonta is an incredible real-life NFL wide receiver. He is one of the best wide receiver 2s we have in today's game. But there are plenty of reasons to pass on him in fantasy football drafts. Firstly, this team does not want or need to throw the football. I mean, and that is severely limiting Devonta Smith's upside on a weekly basis. This team is bottom 3rd in the league in passing attempts per game since Jalen Hurts became the starter. Every single year, they are bottom 3rd. Last year in 2024, you'll see they are dead last. They were 32nd in passing attempts per game, and that is no surprise when you consider they added Saquon Barkley. In fact, the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles are tied for the 2nd lowest passing attempt per game in the last decade of any NFL team. Only the 2022 Chicago Bears had a lower passing attempt per game as an entire season of any NFL team in the last decade. And more importantly, They are rarely down in games, so they rarely need to throw the football, all right? The defense last year was first in points allowed. They gave up the fewest points per game. The Philadelphia Eagles defense is elite. They have an elite running back, an elite offensive line. They very rarely need to throw the ball. And guess what? They just won the Super Bowl. Why would they need to change any of this? They just won the Super Bowl, by far the most dominant team in the NFL last year. Unless Jalen Hurts completely changes his game, I don't see that happening. I mean, we thought maybe the tush push could get banned. Maybe that would open up more opportunities in the red zone. That's not going to happen. And when you look at Devonta Smith's 2024 season, there is some context needed. 15.3 points per game. That sounds fine. That's a great floor. And, but there is more context to this 15.3 points per game because in my opinion, in a way, the stars aligned for Devonta Smith to produce numbers in 2024. Firstly, A.J. Brown went down for some time. Without A.J. Brown, he averaged 17.7 points per game in those games. Dallas Goedert went down for a period of time. Without Dallas Goedert, he averaged 17.5 points per game, compared to with him, 12.7 points per game. But there were just 5 weeks of the entire NFL season where A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert were both healthy. Those weeks were week 1 and then weeks 10 to 13. If you look at Devonta Smith's averages when both A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert were healthy in this offense, I mean, he's only averaging 8.6 points per game. He didn't have a single touchdown in those games. He's only averaging 42 receiving yards per game. And then you could see on the right-hand side, those are the games where those guys were injured and he was kind of on his own dominating, this offense as a receiver. But even fantasy points per snap are way down. Fantasy points per game, 8.6 with everyone healthy, 17.4 when one of those guys are injured. He's a fine floor play, but in a low passing volume offense, I just think he's a much better best ball pick than he is a traditional redraft pick. I don't know how many weeks you're going to be confident to start him, even based off of a matchup, because A.J. Brown is the alpha already and they don't need to throw the ball. Draft with me every night this offseason on the FastDraft app, where there are over $250,000 in prizes waiting to be won. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That is 10 free drafts on us. And when you finish your first real money contest, I'll send you my 2025 rookie report and season rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today. All right, another wide receiver, which I'll make a similar case for, that is Zay Flowers. Let's ask the question, who has Zay Flowers been for fantasy football in his NFL career so far? 2 years, not a single season where he has been a top 30 wide receiver on a points per game basis. Yet for the second year in a row, he's being drafted as a top 24 wide receiver. I actually love Zay Flowers, the player. I truly do. I just don't think he's in an environment to be a league-winning wide receiver. But here's the problem. The Ravens offense has been elite in both of Zay's 2 years in the NFL. See, top 4 in points per game both seasons. But the issue, like the Eagles, is they just don't need to involve their wide receivers as much as the average team, which is why you see a lack of real upside for Zay Flowers. When you look at the targets, 108 as a rookie, 116 last year. The offense is so good, but they barely need to throw the ball. Again, just like the Eagles. If you look at the Ravens' passing attempts per game in the past 3 years, they have been bottom 3rd, bottom 4th in the league every single year. And I mean, I hate to say it, but this is the exact reason that Hollywood Brown wants it out of Baltimore. Is it not? It feels like the same exact reason. It's just a good receiver. I think Zay Flowers is a better receiver, but there just isn't enough volume to go around for these guys, right? And now there will be more competition for targets in 2025. DeAndre Hopkins will be a red zone threat. Right, so you're going to be more uncertain of touchdowns for Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews is going to be more healthy, and he was their red zone threat in the second half of the season. They want Likely to break out. They want Bateman to break out. A talented wide receiver Zay Flowers is, but he's stuck in a situation that just caps his upside. All right, let's talk about a quarterback. And I was pretty low on this quarterback last year as well, but that is Patrick Mahomes. I think we need to be honest about who Patrick Mahomes has been for fantasy football, both in the past and in the present. Because we can respect what someone has done in the past and still be realistic with what we should anticipate for them in the present. In the past, Mahomes has been an absolute league winner. I mean, he averaged almost 24 points per game in his first 5 years in the NFL. But in the present, in the last 2 seasons, back-to-back years where he has been a disappointment for your fantasy team based on where you drafted him. Quarterback 10 and quarterback 11 on a points per game basis. The issue is there is no rushing floor appeal. We have so many rushing quarterbacks in the NFL that just give you that sort of floor that is great for fantasy football. The Jaden Daniels of the world, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurts, the Josh Allens. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has to throw 40+ passing touchdowns to reach any sort of upside. He lost Tyreek Hill. Let's be honest, Tyreek Hill is no longer here, so it's more difficult with those type of plays. Kelsey is no longer the player that he used to be. Now, look, I get it. He lost Hollywood Brown last year. Rashee Rice was injured. But ultimately, this take is based on a very simple idea. Get the most out of each draft pick that you have in every fantasy football draft. And it is my humble opinion that drafting Patrick Mahomes in the 4th round is not going to do that for you in 2025. I would much rather draft the following quarterbacks, some going 4+ rounds later, and build a more complete roster than pay up for a Patrick Mahomes. All right, so for example, why not draft Brock Purdy way later? He averaged more points per game than Mahomes in the last 2 seasons, has great weapons, Kittle, Ayuk, Pearsall, Jennings, CMC. Why not draft Baker Mayfield way later? Coming off a career year, 22.5 points per game. He has a core of Mike Evans, Godwin, Egbuka. They just drafted McMillan, Bucky Irving, Rachaad White. Why not draft Jared Goff way later? He averaged more points per game in 2024 than Patrick Mahomes did. He has Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. Why not draft Kyler Murray way later, who averaged only 0.3 points per game less than Mahomes in 2024, but more points per game than Mahomes in 2023. He has McBride, Marvin Harrison, and he's a serious rushing quarterback. Be honest with yourself for a second, okay? Be honest. If you look at the team all around these quarterbacks, all the quarterbacks that I just mentioned, compare them to Patrick Mahomes' situation. Mahomes in a situation where some guys can break out. Rice is healthy. He might be healthy. He might not be. Kelsey's kind of falling off a little bit. And Mahomes has a defense that just doesn't mean you need to throw the ball that much. If you look at all the weapons around those quarterbacks I just suggested, are they not all set up for fantasy success better than Patrick Mahomes? You have to answer that question yourself. All right. Last player we'll talk about here, Travis Etienne. I really love Travis Etienne as a player. I honestly do. I just think we need to smell the coffee, maybe, right? Let's be real. Etienne was awful last year. He was truly awful. I know he was dealing with injuries. Every NFL player deals with injuries at some point of the year. I mean, Tank Bigsby was dealing with injuries in this backfield as well. But there were 46 running backs in the league last year with 100 rushing attempts. He ranked 43rd in PFF grade, 40th in yards per attempt, 43rd in yards after contact per attempt, 44th in missed tackles forced. I mean, he was just a mediocre running back at best who got a lot of volume. But it is a new year, new coaching staff, right? Liam Cohen is kind of the head of the snake over there. There are no loyalties to anyone. No loyalties to Etienne, to Bigsby, to Tootin. And I know Cohen has just said some positive things about Etienne this offseason, but haven't we seen that before? Didn't he just say the same things last year about Rachaad White? Check this out.
Patient,
yeah.
Sometimes too patient.
I mean, he has taken every detail that we've coached throughout this offseason and applied it.
Either way, this team made it very clear that they were not comfortable with the running back room that they had this offseason. John Shipley of Sports Illustrated reported that the Jaguars would have taken Ashton Jeanty at number 5 had they not traded up for Travis Hunter. And also Liam Cohen was reportedly after RJ Harvey at pick number 70 if he was available at that pick. So they missed on Harvey, but they still brought in Bashul Tootin, round 4, pick 2. Who knows how involved Tootin will be? But the question we should be asking is, what does Liam Cohen reward for his running backs? I know I've said this a lot in previous videos, but Liam Cohen rewards efficiency, play extending, and explosiveness. And we saw that last year in Tampa Bay. You can see Bucky Irving was far more efficient, extended plays more often, and was far more explosive, and they rewarded him with a lion's share of the carries and of the touches in this offense. So who in Jacksonville has shown that they can offer that? Those three, efficiency, play extending, and explosiveness. Well, we haven't seen Tootin on the field yet, but between Etienne and Bigsby by far offered more of what Cohen was looking for last year than Etienne did. If you compare these guys side by side, and both were dealing with injuries, keep that in mind. Same offensive line. Bigsby had a better PFF grade, better yards per attempt, yards after contact, missed tackles forced, breakaway percentage. He was more efficient, extended plays better, and was more explosive. And we just saw Liam Cohen replace a high usage running back with low efficiency last year. Rachaad White was coming off a great fantasy season, about 16 points per game, but only 3.6 yards per carry. Is that not exactly what we saw from Etienne in 2023? His one good fantasy season, his one good season, Both had 325 plus touches. Both had great fantasy seasons, but both were very poor from an efficiency perspective for the NFL for the rushing attack, right? So who's it going to be? Etienne, Bigsby, Tootin? I mean, if Etienne bounces back, then I will be okay missing out on that train, but I think there are too many red flags to go out and pursue him this year. We're all trying to avoid landmines in fantasy football. I'm doing the same thing in my Flex 4 FastDraft tourneys. You draft 6 players in this format. The top 4 get entered into your lineup each and every week. No positional limitation. There's a $50,000 prize pool. In a recent draft, I took 6 wide receivers to just avoid any running back busts that I possibly can, right? I got Mike Evans in the 4th round, for example. I would love for you guys to come draft with me over there. The earlier you draft in these contests, the better you can exploit the ADP. Download FastDraft. Use the promo code LAND. We'll match your deposit up to $50. That is 10 free drafts on us. I appreciate y'all watching the video. Do me a favor, hit that like button and show some love. Subscribe if you like the content, and I'll see you in the next video. Nothing but love. If you're thinking about supporting us in this economy, that's big love, and you deserve love in return. So for every yearly Mother Flocker member who uses the promo code LAND, we're giving out a free team playbook, our 2025 rookie report, access to all premium tools, free site vouchers, and of course, a huge thank you from the LAND crew. You're far too kind. That's love.